Okay. Actually, over the years that I've joined you all during this luncheon, we've had themes like Harry Potter, where thankfully I was sorted into Gryffindor. There was one luncheon about superheroes where I tried to get folks excited about the newest Marvel character, Congressman. But honestly, today we have a pretty incredible theme. It's about fulfilling our promises, which is something I take really seriously. Though to my chagrin, it's a notion that I think doesn't happen enough. And I'm not just saying that with regard to some of my colleagues in Washington, D.C. I had a guy in a TV commercial promise me that if I bought clothes from his store, that I'd like the way I'd look. He guaranteed it. And yet, perhaps he didn't see how that green tie looked on me. Promise not kept. A highly caffeinated beverage promised to give me wings. Promise not kept. No wings. I was promised 30-minute delivery for my pizza on Friday night, and I can tell you that 52 minutes later, I had a really grumpy 12-year-old. Speaking of my 12-year-old, I was promised by my kids that they would most definitely do all of the work if we got another puppy. Not all of those promises were true, and not all of them were fulfilled. In fact, when we're finished here, I have to go take my Australian Shepherd Penny for a quick walk around the block. But you know what promise is fulfilled? The promise of higher education and the promise of OC. The investments that we make in higher education are investments that fulfill promises really at three different levels: for our country, for our community, and for students. So let me just quickly talk about all three. First, when we invest in higher education, we fulfill a promise to our country that we aren't going to just let economic growth happen someplace else. When I worked in economic development in Tacoma, I had a sign on my wall that said, "We are competing with everyone, everywhere, every day, forever." And I admit, I often found that sign a bit intimidating, but it's also a really good ethic, not just for folks working in local economic development, but for our country too. The reality is that the nations with whom we compete aren't just sitting on the sidelines. They want to eat our lunch, and we shouldn't let them. There's a reason that going all the way back to the GI Bill and going all the way back to the response to Sputnik, our nation recognized that our future from an economic standpoint and even from a national security standpoint depended on investments in higher education. So here's what we know. When we invest in higher education, when we invest in OC and its students, we invest in winning that competition. Second, we also know that investing in higher education and in OC particularly, it delivers on a promise made to Kitsap County and its employers. Our local employers count on OC. The shipyard counts on OC to produce skilled tradespeople. St. Michael's Hospital counts on OC to produce folks with that skills in allied health. Our local financial institutions depend on OC to produce folks with skills in business and accounting. Our local tech firms count on them to learn cyber skills. I could go on and on. So the promise fulfilled by OC is one for jobs in our local community. But what's more, according to the International Economic Development Council, the number one factor that businesses use in making their location decisions is the availability of good, skilled, educated workers. So it's not just a promise made to our current employers, it's one made to future employers too. Okay, third, and this one's probably the most important, the promise made by Olympic College to its students is that an education at OC will create opportunity for them. Let's break that down for a second. Investing in higher education, investing in OC is a promise fulfilled in the form of employment. The data tell us that as educational attainment goes up, so does the likelihood that someone will be employed rather than unemployed. Beyond that, it's a promise fulfilled in addressing income inequality. Again, the data tell us that as educational attainment goes up, so does pay. If you get a certificate, it goes up. If you get an associate's degree, it goes up. If you get a bachelor's degree, it goes up. But listen, the promise of higher education isn't just seen in the data, it's seen in the stories. It's seen in the story of the nursing student at OC who's now able to get a great job where she provides care to all of our loved ones, which, as we've seen over the last couple of years, is more important than ever. It's seen in the story of the graduate of the Shipyard's Apprenticeship Program, a program that has won the Association of Community Colleges Excellence Award. That student who can now go on to work at the shipyard to make an amazing living protecting our sailors. It's seen in our political science students who we are going to count on to fix all of this. Listen, I could go program by program and talk about the important work being done. The faculty and the staff at OC are fulfilling promises to students every day. The leaders at Olympic College, including OC's fearless leader, Dr. Cavalluzzi and Trevor Ross, and all of the board members and administrators and trustees and faculty are fulfilling promises to our young people. I say that because they remind us that talented educators, teaching committed students, can keep our community and our economy strong. But listen, the work that's done here, the knowledge that's developed here, is only able to happen when students are able to afford it, when these doors of economic opportunity aren't locked for them. And that means that perhaps the most important people fulfilling promises today are all of you watching and listening today, the supporters of the OC Foundation. Okay, listen, I am ethically prohibited from making an ask of you to donate to this foundation, but I can tell you this. I can tell you that when the foundation helps OC students, it makes it more likely that they can fulfill the promises we discussed today. I can tell you what it meant to me. I couldn't have gone to college if it hadn't been. I got loans and I washed dishes in the college dining room, which my wife believes is the best skill I learned in college. But I also had a community that cared enough about me to provide scholarships to help me pay for college. I can tell you that I think it was Beyonce who said it best when she said, "If you're keeping your promise, I'm keeping mine." Now, I think she may have been referring to Jay-Z. But the reality is, when scholarship funds are available to students, when we keep our promise to them, they keep their promise to us by filling jobs and contributing to our community. I can remind you that when you support the OC Foundation and the foundation supports local students, it means people in our region can fill open jobs. It means we don't have to worry about our largest export being our young people. And I can tell you in closing that when you support the OC Foundation, you're going to like the way it feels. I guarantee it.